May God's Spirit move in you as these curtains are being blown by the wind behind me. We'll spend our time in Psalm 92 this morning. The Psalms have been broken up into 5 books. The first 5 books of the Bible are sometimes referred to as the 5 books of Moses. The Psalms, analogously speaking, are the 5 songbooks of David. You may or may not have caught it, but we're 4 weeks into our Psalm series, and we have been rooting each of these Sundays in one of these books of the Psalms. This week is no different. This week we come to book number 4. This is a smaller section spanning from Psalm 90 to 106. You're welcome to read them this week. They're an interesting read. Scholarly consensus places the writing of most of these Psalms in the middle of exile. In the midst of trouble, in the midst of being dragged away from home and what's comfortable and plunked down in a foreign place is where these songs arise. This section of songs sustains the hope that God will keep his covenant with his people by installing a future king from David's line. This is evidenced particularly in the enthronement psalms, which are at the heart of book number 4. Especially you can read that section, Psalm 95 to 100. At the beginning of book 4, there is a well-known triad of 3 songs: Psalm 90, Psalm 91, and Psalm 92. Psalm 90 is credited to Moses, which likely places its roots amongst the oldest songs in Israel. It asks for God to turn with kindness and compassion towards God's children who find themselves in trouble. Psalm 91 is that beautiful reminder of protection for those who live in the shelter of the Most High, who dwell in the shadow of the Almighty. They will experience God's rescue and God's help. Psalm 92, probably the least well-known of the 3, is a song of thanksgiving to God in light of the steadfast love and faithfulness God's children experience from daybreak to night's end. So within these 3 psalms, there is this bit of a movement. In Psalm 90, there's a pained petition. In Psalm 91, this promised protection. And in Psalm 92, a restored rejoicing. We were not long ago in the book of Numbers. There we saw time and again Moses interceding for the people of Israel as they found themselves filled with angst and fear and in trouble in the wilderness. Here the Psalter has placed a reimagined Moses at the beginning of book 4 to intercede not for a people out in the desert wilderness, but those who find themselves in the midst of trouble in exile in Babylon. Moses is the one who led the people to their exodus from Egypt. The Psalter imagines afresh in the old, sturdy, interceding voice of Moses calling to God to raise up a king out of David's line to rule again. We believe that God did this decisively, responding to these interceding songs, and sent Jesus, the King of the universe, who was born in David's town, Bethlehem, out of the line of David those many years ago. This is Thanksgiving weekend here in Canada. We do not find ourselves in exile, and yet for most of us, this is likely the most restricted, weird, strange, difficult, bizarre, disillusioned Thanksgiving we have ever experienced in our days. For this reason, I think Psalm 92 offers us some pointers. Thanks doesn't always just well up when things are perfect. Gratitude, in many ways, is a discipline which we cultivate from the inside out. Here in the heart of exile, the psalmist invites us to join in singing for joy. The outside circumstances maybe were a hot mess, but here, in a Sabbath song of rest, there is an important remembering, a reminder that it is indeed good to give thanks to the Lord, that it is indeed good to sing praises to the Most High, to declare God's steadfast love and faithfulness morning to night, to respond to who God is and how God works in joy. I've always been fascinated by joy. It is, in most traditions, a virtue. In our Christian tradition, it is a fruit of the Spirit. It's a gift. There seems to be a recognition that joy is something bigger, more robust, less fleeting and fickle than simple happiness. As I've pondered joy, as I've attempted to reflect on my experiences of joy, as I've read about others and their encounters with joy, there seems to be a connected factor in the joy equation. This factor that always seems to be in the mix when it comes to joy is gratitude. Gratitude is the recognition of all that holds us in the web of life and all that has made it possible to have the life that we have and the moment that we are experiencing. Thanksgiving is a natural response to life and may be the only way to actually savor it. The Christian spiritual tradition recognizes the importance of gratitude and gratefulness. Here in the heart of the Psalms songbook, in the face of trouble and exile, a rightful song of thanks to God rises up. Gratitude for who God is and what God does is central even in the midst of trouble. Practicing gratitude offers us a perspective shift. It moves us away from this narrow-minded focus on fault and lack to the wider perspective of benefit and abundance. A well-known monk described it this way: it is not happiness that makes us grateful, it's gratefulness that makes us happy. Every moment is gift. There is no certainty that you will have another moment, with all the opportunity that it contains. The gift within every gift is the opportunity it offers. Most often it is the opportunity to enjoy it, but sometimes a difficult gift is given to us, and that can be an opportunity to rise to the challenge. This opportunity is all about embracing reality. Whether the reality is exile or pandemic or trouble in relationship or community or church or whatever. Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who took head-on the reality of race issues in Africa, is a big believer in the way of gratitude, as it means moving from only counting our burdens to beginning to count our blessings. This he calls both an antidote to envy and a recipe for beginning to appreciate the gift of our own lives. So how do we live these joy-filled lives of gratitude? The psalmist, I think, paints a picture. We flourish like a palm tree. We grow strong and rot-resistant like a mighty cedar. Verse 13, towards the end of the psalm, says it this way: planted in the house of the Lord, they flourish in the courts of our God. The righteous, grateful ones produce fruit right through old age. They stay lush and green and vibrant. Their flourishing points to God. It is a life of witness. Does your flourishing point to God? Does it give witness to the one who gives life and is steadfast in loving kindness, mercy, and faithfulness? Does your flourishing extend goodness to others? One of my observations on joy rooted in gratitude is that it begins to do a world of good beyond simply the individual who's experiencing it. This might be one of its differences from simple happiness. Like that righteous tree, it now provides shade for others. Like that mighty palm, it provides delicious fruit to be shared with others. That same monk I referenced earlier says this, and I'll close with this on this Thanksgiving weekend. When you're grateful, you're not fearful. And when you're not fearful, you're not violent, you're not competitive. When you're grateful, you act out of a sense of enough and not out of scarcity, and you become willing to share. If you're grateful, you are enjoying the differences between people and respecting all people. A grateful world is a world of joyful people. Grateful people are joyful people. So would you characterize your life as joy-filled these days? Or better yet, would your friends and neighbors be able to see you as see in you a joy-filled flourishing? Does joy radiate from you even in the midst of these trying days, which leaves onlookers head-scratching? Does your joy-filled, flourishing life point to God, giving witness to God's goodness? If it does, keep living gratefully in this gift. If not, I encourage you to examine your gratitude. Give gratitude a go. See what it can do for you. See what it can do for your whole world. God has a gift of joy waiting for you, and perhaps gratitude is the key to unwrapping this gift that is already given in his Spirit. May we indeed be like joy-filled, flourishing trees planted by streams of water, bearing fruit in all seasons, to the glory of God and to the good of neighbor. Amen.